Historical mistakes that should never have happened. History is often presented as a logical chain of events, where each outcome feels inevitable once it has happened. But when examined closely, many of the moments that shaped the modern world were not the result of grand strategy or destiny. They were the result of mistakes, miscalculations, poor communication, human pride, fear, and in some cases, a complete refusal to listen to warnings. These are not stories of evil masterminds plotting destruction. They are stories of ordinary people in positions of power, making decisions under pressure, believing they were doing the right thing, and being catastrophically wrong. What makes these mistakes especially haunting is that many of them were preventable. In the summer of 1914, Europe stood on a fragile balance. The great powers were tense, heavily armed, and bound together by alliances, but war was not guaranteed. Diplomacy, though strained, was still functioning. What followed was not a carefully planned descent into chaos, but a rapid collapse driven by misjudgment. The visit of Archduke Franz Ferdinand to Sarajevo was already controversial. He was the heir to the Austro-Hungarian Empire, and his presence in a politically unstable region carried risk. Security planning was flawed from the start. Routes were published in advance. Threats were known but underestimated. The assassination attempt itself initially failed. One attacker missed his chance. Another threw a bomb that failed to kill the Archduke. At that point, the situation could have been contained. Instead, a decision was made to continue the visit. Then came a simple human error. The driver took a wrong turn. That mistake placed the Archduke's car directly in front of Gavrilo Princip, who had already abandoned the plan. 2 shots ended 2 lives. The real tragedy began afterward. Political leaders responded with ultimatums instead of restraint. Mobilizations were ordered without clear communication. Each side assumed the other would back down. None did. Within weeks, World War I had begun. What followed was 4 years of industrialized slaughter, the collapse of empires, and over 16 million deaths. All triggered by a series of avoidable errors, compounded by arrogance and fear. The overconfidence that destroyed an empire. By 1812, Napoleon Bonaparte was the most powerful man in Europe. His military victories were studied and feared. His enemies had been defeated repeatedly. Success had convinced him that he was unstoppable. That belief proved fatal. Napoleon's decision to invade Russia was not irrational on paper. Russia had violated agreements and posed a strategic threat. But Napoleon made a series of assumptions that would destroy his army. He believed the campaign would be short. He believed Russia would negotiate after one decisive battle. He believed his logistical system could sustain his forces. All of those assumptions were wrong. Russian forces retreated instead of engaging directly, destroying supplies as they withdrew. Napoleon's army advanced deeper into hostile territory with supply lines stretched beyond repair. Food became scarce. Horses died. Discipline collapsed. When winter arrived, it did not merely slow the army, it annihilated it. Of the more than 600,000 soldiers who entered Russia, only a fraction returned. This single campaign shattered the myth of Napoleon's invincibility and emboldened his enemies. It marked the beginning of his downfall. The mistake was not military incompetence, it was absolute overconfidence. In 1912, the RMS Titanic represented the pinnacle of modern engineering. It was larger, faster, and more luxurious than any ship before it. More importantly, it was believed to be nearly unsinkable. That belief shaped every critical decision. Because the ship was considered safe, it carried lifeboats for only a fraction of those on board. Because the risk was dismissed, warnings about icebergs were ignored or downplayed. Because confidence replaced caution, speed was maintained in dangerous waters. When the iceberg struck, the damage was not immediately understood. Evacuation was delayed. Passengers were reassured instead of rushed to safety. More than 7,500 people died that night. The Titanic did not fail. because technology was insufficient. It failed because human judgment was clouded by pride. The disaster forced sweeping changes in maritime safety laws, but only after proving that believing your own myth can be deadly. When the fighting of World War I ended, the world desperately wanted peace. Instead, it received a fragile illusion. The Treaty of Versailles was designed to punish Germany and prevent future conflict. In practice, it did the opposite. Germany lost territory, military power, and economic stability. Massive reparations crippled its economy. The treaty publicly humiliated the nation, assigning blame without offering reconciliation. Rather than stabilizing Europe, the treaty created resentment, anger, and despair. These conditions allowed extremist ideologies to flourish. Among those who exploited this chaos was Adolf Hitler. 2 decades later, Europe was once again at war in World War II. The mistake was not ending the First War harshly. It was failing to understand that lasting peace cannot be built on humiliation alone. In 1961, the United States approved a covert operation to overthrow Fidel Castro. The plan became known as the Bay of Pigs invasion. It relied on deeply flawed assumptions. Intelligence reports exaggerated local opposition to Castro. Planners believed a small force could trigger a popular uprising. They assumed secrecy would compensate for weak logistics. None of it was true. The invasion failed almost immediately. The attackers were captured or killed. International embarrassment followed. Castro's position was strengthened, not weakened. Worse still, the failure pushed Cuba closer to the Soviet Union, directly contributing to the Cuban Missile Crisis, one of the closest brushes with nuclear war in human history. This was a mistake born from overconfidence, secrecy, and the refusal to challenge optimistic assumptions. In 1986, a routine safety test at the Chernobyl nuclear power plant went catastrophically wrong. The disaster was not caused by a single failure. It was the result of flawed reactor design, inadequate training, and a rigid hierarchy that discouraged questioning authority. When the explosion occurred, the response was slow and secretive. Officials delayed evacuation. Information was withheld. Exposure increased. Radioactive materials spread across Europe. Entire regions became uninhabitable. Chernobyl was not just a technological failure. It was a failure of transparency and leadership. The refusal to acknowledge reality made the damage far worse than it needed to be. 7. Challenger ignoring the warnings. In January 1986, the Space Shuttle Challenger exploded shortly after launch. Engineers had warned that cold temperatures could cause critical seal failures. Their concerns were documented. They were accurate. The decision to proceed was driven by schedule pressure, public expectations, and managerial overconfidence. Warnings were overruled. 7 astronauts died live on television. The tragedy revealed a pattern seen repeatedly in history. When expert warnings are ignored in favor of optimism, disaster follows. The Vietnam War was not a single decision, but a chain of misjudgments. U.S. leaders misunderstood the political, cultural, and historical realities of Vietnam. They viewed the conflict through the lens of Cold War ideology rather than local context. Early warnings that the war could not be won militarily were ignored. Escalation replaced strategy. Casualty numbers replaced progress. Millions died. Trust in government collapsed. The war ended not with victory, but exhaustion. The mistake was not intervention alone. It was refusing to accept reality once evidence mounted. The greatest historical mistakes rarely come from ignorance. They come from certainty, from leaders who believe they cannot be wrong, from systems that silence dissent, from cultures that reward confidence over caution. History cannot be rewritten, but it can be understood, and understanding these mistakes may be the only way to prevent them from happening again.